Good day everyone. Today we will be discussing Philippine History, Spaces for Conflict and Controversies, Chapter 3. So let's first discuss the two key concepts of historical analysis of problems, the historical interpretation and multi-perspectivity. When we say historical interpretation, it is the process by which we describe, analyze, evaluate, and create an explanation of the past. This means that individuals who interpret certain objects or historical topic might be biased in their interpretation. It's because they have their own ideology, their educational background, and their personal views on the artifacts. Multi-perspectivity, it is pertaining to more than one perspective. So in history, we should understand that there are a lot of perspective because there could be many interpretations based on the perspective of the historians. Let's proceed. Case study number 1. Where did the first Catholic Mass take place in the Philippines? Is it in Limasawa in Leyte or Masao in Butuan? This is now the conflict, the site of the first Catholic Mass. However, this case study will not concentrate on the significance or lack of the site of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, but rather will use it as an example of how to use evidence and interpretation to interpret historical events. In 1998, the National Historical Institute, or NHI, officially settled the long-standing controversy over the site of the recorded first Mass in the Philippines between Limasawa, Southern Leyte, and Masao in Butuan City in Mindanao. The NHI decided in of Limasawa. However, there are claims that the site of the first Catholic Mass happened in Masao in Butuan City. Actually, the site of the first Catholic Mass was debated by the scholars and historians for 3 centuries, and it must be noted that there are only 2 primary sources historians refer to in identifying the site of the first Catholic Mass. One is the log kept by Francisco Albo. Albo was from the island of Rhodes in Greece with knowledge on Portuguese discoveries in the art of navigation. In addition, he is also a pilot of one of Magellan's ship, Trinidad, and was one of the 18 survivors who returned with Sebastian Elcano on the ship Victoria after they circumnavigated the world. The other and the more complete was the account by Antonio Pigafetta, First Voyage Around the World. Pigafetta, like Albo, was a member of the Magellan expedition and an eyewitness of the events, particularly of the first Mass.
Good morning everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the primary source of Albo's log. But first and foremost, who is Francisco Albo? Francisco Albo was a pilot of one of Magellan's ship Trinidad. He was one of the 18 survivors who returned with Sebastian Elcano on the ship Victoria after they circumnavigated the world. What is his role in Magellan's expedition? After the death of the Portuguese, he became the pilot of the Victoria under the command of Juan Sebastian, becoming one of the first person to circumnavigate the world. Primary source of Albo's log. Pigafetta's account found on one of the citations of Miguel A. Bernal in his book Butuan or Limasawa, the site of the first Mass in the Philippines. A re-examination of evidence published in the year of 1981. According to Albus, on the 16th of March 1521, as they sailed in the westerly course from Ladrones, they saw land towards the northwest, but owing to many shallow places, they did not approach it. They found later that its name was Yunagan, and they went instead that same day southwards to another small island named Suluan, and there they anchored. There they saw some canoes, but these fled at the Spaniards' approach. This island was at 9 2/3 degrees north latitude. Departing from those 2 islands, they sailed westward to an uninhabited island of Gada, where they took in a supply of wood and water. The sea around that island was free from shallows. From that island they sailed westwards towards a large island named Silani that was inhabited and was known to have gold. Silani was the island of Leyte. Sailing southwards along the coast of that large island of Silani, they turned southwest to a small island called Mazava. That island is also a latitude of 9 and 2/3 degrees north. The people of that island of Mazava were very good. There the Spaniards planted a cross upon a mountain top, and from there they were shown 3 islands to the west and southwest, where they were told there was much gold. They said that they showed us how the gold was gathered, which came in small pieces like peas and lentils. From Mazava, they sailed northwards again towards Silani. These followed the coast of Silani in a northwesterly direction, ascending up to 10 degrees of latitude, where they saw 3 small islands. From there, they sailed westwards some 10 leagues, and there they saw 3 islets, where they dropped anchor for the night. In the morning, they sailed southwest some 12 leagues down to a latitude of 10 and 1/3 degree. There, they entered a channel between 2 islands, one of which was called Matan and the other one is Subu. They sailed down that one channel and then turned westward and anchored at the town of Subu, where they stayed many days and obtained provisions and entered into a peace pact with the local king. The town of Subu was on the east-west directions with the islands of Suluan and Mazava, but between Mazava and Subu, there were so many shallows that the boats could not go westwards directly but has to go in a roundabout way. It must be noted that the Albus account, the location of Mazava fits the location of the island of Limasawa at the southern tip of Leyte. Also, Albo does not mention the first mass, but only the planting of the cross upon the mountain top, from which could be seen 3 islands to the west and southwest, which also fits the southern end of Limasawa. Francisco Albo. He keeps his diary or logbook on the voyage out while they were sailing southward in the Atlantic along the coast of the South America. Albo, also known as Alvaro, was born on the island of Rhodes and was supposed to have been knowledgeable concerning Portuguese discoveries in the art of navigation. He began the voyage as a boatswain on the Trinidad. The first entry in the log was not made until November 29, 1519. 2 months after the voyage began, and Albo kept it only as far as the Cape Verde Island on the return voyage. It is the only extant account containing navigational data, daily entries of the course of the Victoria, latitude readings, and island encounter. Stanley maintains that this book is especially valuable because it helps to fix the position of the unfortunate islands and because it established that the island of Amsterdam in the Indian Ocean was discovered by the Victoria's crew and not by the Dutch navigator. And that's the end of our discussion about the primary source of Albo's log. And now let's proceed to our next reporter.
Primary source, Pigafetta's testimony on the route of Magellan's expedition. Pigafetta's account found on one of the citation of Miguel A. Bernard in his book Butuan, or Limawaza, the site of the first mass in the Philippines. A re-examination of evidence published in the year 1981, according to Pigafetta on first, Saturday, 16 March 1521, Magellan's expedition sighted a highland named Zamal, or now it is called Samal, which was some 300 leagues westward of Landrones, now the Marianas Islands. 2. Sunday, March 17, the following day after sighting Samal Island, they landed on another island which was uninhabited and which lay to the right of the above-mentioned island of Samal. So after nila niadto sa Samal Island, niadto na pud sila sa laing island, above lang o taas lang sa Samal Island. The name of this island was Humunu or Humunhun, and this island was located at 10 degrees north latitude. Third, on that same day, Sunday, March 17, Magellan named the entire archipelago the island of St. Lazarus, the reason being it was Sunday in the Lenten season when the gospel assigned for the Mass and the liturgical office was the 11th chapter of St. John, which tells of the raising of Lazarus from the dead. 4. Monday, March 18 in the afternoon of the second day on the island, they saw a boat coming towards them with the 9 men in it. An exchange of gift was effected. Magellan asked for food supplies and then men went away, promising to bring rice and other supplies in 4 days. So on March 18, Monday, na sila ay nakita nga mga grupo sa mga lalaki na niadto sa ilaha, na padulong sa ilaha, but they asked a food supplies for them to para makuha nila ang kagutom sa island. 5. There were 2 springs of water on that island of Homonhon. Also, they saw there some indications that there was gold in this island. Consequently, Magellan renamed the island and called it the watering place of good omen. Friday, March 22 at noon, the natives returned. This time, they were in 2 boats and they brought food supplies. So, sama sa gingon ganina, sa number 4, nasa nakita nga men, 9 kabuok, but on Friday, March 22, ning balik sila, nagdala sila pagkaon, but they're in 2 boats. Magellan's expedition stayed 8 days at Homonhon from Sunday and left the island of Homonhon. So as you can see, I wasn't able to put the number 8, but number 8 says that Monday, March 25 in the afternoon, the expedition weighed, anchored, and left the island of Homonhon. But on March 25, Pigafetta's, an accident happened to Pigafetta. He fell into the water but was rescued because he attributed his narrow escape from the death as grace obtained through the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary on her feast day. Number 9. The route taken by the expedition after leaving Homonhon was toward the west-southwest between 4 islands, namely Sinalo, Yunanghan, Ibuson, and Albarin. So very probably, Sinalo is a misspelling in the Italian manuscript for what Pigafetta in his map calls Silion, and Albo calls Siliani, namely the island of Leyte. Yunanghan, a misspelling of Yunangan, seemed to Pigafetta to be a separate island, but it is actually on the mainland of Leyte. On the other hand, Hibuson, or Pigafetta's Ibuson, is an island, east of Leyte's Soundtrip tip. Number 10, Thursday, March 28. In the morning of Holy Thursday, March 28, they anchored off an island where the previous night they had seen a light of bonfire. So nakakita sila og bonfire on that island. So that island lies in a latitude of 9 2/3 towards the Arctic Pole and in a longitude of 162 degrees from the line of demarcation. It is 25 leagues from the Aquada and is called Mazua. Number 11, they remained 7 days on Mazua Island. So 7 days sila nagstay sa Mazua Island. 12, Thursday, April 4, they left Mazua. So after 7 days, April 4, nihawa na sila sa island na Mazua, bound for Cebu. So they go to Cebu. They were guided thither by the king of Mazua who sailed in his own boat. They accompanied by the king of Mazua, pero naglahi siya og iyahang sakyanan. Their route took them past 5 islands, namely Selion, Bohol, Kanighan, Baybay, and Gatighan. So, before sila makadto sa Cebu, nasa sila nagyan na 5 islands, which is kato akong gi-mention. 13, at Katighan, they sailed westward to the 3 islands of the Camotes group, namely Poro, Pasihan, and Ponson. Here, the Spanish ships stopped to allow the king of Mazua to catch up with them. Since the Spanish ships were much faster than the native, Balanghay, a thing that excited the admiration of the king Mazua. 14, from the Camotes Island, they sailed southwards towards Cebu. So, from Camotes Island, so naglakbay na naman sila patungong Cebu. Sunday, April 7 at noon, they entered the harbor of Cebu, or now what we call is Cebu. It had taken them 3 days to negotiate the journey from Mazua to northwards to the Camotes Island and then southwards to Cebu. And last, it must be pointed out that both Albo and Pigafetta's testimonies coincide and corroborate each other. Pigafetta gave more details on what they did during their week-long at Mazwa.
7 days at Masawa. The island of Masawa lies at a latitude of 9 and 2/3 degree north. On March 28, they anchored near an island and a small boat came with 8 natives to whom Magellan threw some trinkets. In the afternoon of that day, the Spanish ship weighed anchor and came closer to shore near the native king's village. So when we say trinkets, it is a small ornament or item of jewelry that is of a little value. Take note that this day is a Holy Thursday. On March 29, Holy Friday, Magellan sent his slave interpreter to ask the king about food supplies, and he also said that they came as a friend, not as an enemies. The king and his men went up Magellan's ship, and the 2 men embraced. Another exchange of gifts was made. When they returned, they bring 2 members of Magellan expedition as a guest. One of them is Pigafetta. On March 30, Saturday, Pigafetta and his companions spent the previous evening feasting and drinking with the native king and his son. Pigafetta and his companion took leave of their host and returned to the ships. On March 31, Sunday or Easter Sunday, early in the morning, Magellan sent the priest with some men to prepare for the Mass. Later in the morning, Magellan landed with 50 men and Mass was celebrated. Magellan and the Spaniards returned to the ship for the noonday meal. In the afternoon, they returned to plant the cross on the summit of the highest hill. Both at the Mass and the planting of the cross were the King of Mazawa and the King of Butuan. It was Father Pedro Valderrama who conducted the first Catholic Mass, and this is Easter Sunday. It is a very momentous to the Catholic because it commemorates the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. And this first Mass, this event, marks the beginning of Christianity and the birth of Catholicism in our country. The 2 kings here refer to the king of Mazawa, Raha Kulambo, brother of Raha Shago, the king of Butuan. On April 1, no work was done because the 2 kings were sleeping off their drinking about the night before. On April 2 and 3, Tuesday and Wednesday, work on the harvest. On April 4, Thursday, they left Mazawa bound for Cebu. Using the primary sources available, it lays down an argument that on Pigafetta account, a crucial aspect of Butuan wasn't mentioned, the river. Butuan is a riverine settlement situated on the Agusan River. The beach of Masao is in the delta of the said river. It is a curious omission in the account of Pigafetta if the river, which makes part of a distinct characteristic of Butuan's geography, seemed to be too important to be missed. Later on, after Magellan's death and after Cebu debacle, the survivors of his expedition went to Butuan, and Pigafetta described quite vividly a trip in a river to see the Queen. But that was happened after Magellan's death. Where did the first Catholic Mass happen? Actually, that controversy or conflict was put an end last July 15, 2020, since the National Historical Commission of the Philippines affirmed the first Mass indeed happened at Limasawa, since Butuan is lack of evidence.